What up? What up? What up, good people? How's everybody doing? Welcome to another episode of He Said, He Said, He Said, a look at the world from a seasoned Black man's perspective. I am Alvin King, and it is a wonderful day. It is Friday, September the 10th. We've missed you all. I know you all have noticed that we have not been on pretty much during the month of August. But we needed to step back for a minute so that we could reboot and refresh and elevate, our product and our brand so that we can bring you everything that we know that you have been receiving and have liked from us. So, wow, it is so good to be back. And yes, we are live. Our show tonight is about triggers. That's right. We all have them. But before we go into the show, I want to give you guys a disclaimer. We are not therapists or doctors, and we are simply having a conversation with you about a topic that we felt needed to be discussed, and in particularly according to our perspectives. But before I bring on my co-host Saladin and Vash, who I miss terribly, we're going to have like a little prelude discussion before we get into the topic, and we're also going to talk about the reason that led us to talking about this particular topic, and talk to you all about that. But let me tell you, in mental health terms, a trigger refers to something that affects your emotional state, often significantly, but causing extreme overwhelm or distress. A trigger affects your ability to remain present in the moment. It may also bring up specific thought patterns or influence your behavior. That's in mental health terms. In medicine, a trigger is a specific event that starts a process or that causes a particular outcome. For example, chemotherapy, painful treatments, or smells, sounds, and sights that go with them, or trigger anxiety and fear in a patient who has cancer, for example. In Merriam-Webster's terms, the definition of trigger is to cause an intense and usually negative emotional reaction in someone. But on the streets, where I come from, it is simply called popping off. And tonight, we're going to talk about triggers, and we're going to talk about the cause and effects of triggers. But before we do that, I need to bring on two guys who I love dearly, my co-hosts, Mr. Saladin Dare and Mr. Vash Bodhi. You all come on in here tonight. How you guys doing?
Hey.
Hey, good to see you guys.
Good to see you guys. Oh my God, your smiles, okay? You guys, I am doing the show tonight from a beautiful place called Corolla, North Carolina. It is the Outer Banks. I've been here for a week. In 2019, I got chased out because of a hurricane after being here 2 days, and it chased me out. So to be here and spend the whole week here, it is beautiful. So I'm feeling a little rested right now. So good to see you guys.
Oh, are you going to come back with an accent?
I hope not.
Oh, I hope you.
I hope not. I hope not. Not
I do declare.
I do.
At least not an accent. I may come back with a couple of things, but it will not be I'm talking about souvenirs. That's right.
And a good tan. Like, have you been getting sun? Like, how has it been?
See, you all can't see me. I am tan from head to toe. A couple of sections missing, but we won't talk about that. This is a family show sometimes. So, but no, I am really tanned, and like I said, and rested. And funny that we're talking about this show triggers tonight, because I'm in a someone planned this trip. So it's about 12 other people who I don't know, who I've never housed or roomed with. And I have to say, it has been a wonderful experience, and none of my triggers have come up. So,
oh, that's good.
Okay, yeah. None of my triggers have come up. So I don't know where they are. If they are tuning in, I'm not going to call any names, but this has been a good trip. And this topic truly has not been an issue for me on this trip. So, yeah. So
that's great to hear.
Yeah.
I also want to share with our viewers that we didn't just like pull this topic out of our pocket, that it came from a certain place, and there was a certain something that triggered us to want to talk about this and have a discussion. So if we can, I want to put up a clip, image of a picture for those of you who didn't see this on August the 22nd. And we can't play the clip because we don't have the rights to it, ladies and gentlemen. But this is at a Pittsburgh Steelers Detroit Lions preseason game, and a Caucasian woman, and a black man got into a fight. And on the video, it's now viral. It shows the man and woman in some sort of argument, and you hear the woman yell something like, "Shut the F up." The woman apparently made contact when yelling because the man tells her, "Don't touch me," and swipes her hand away. That's when you see the woman deliver the slap, and all H breaks loose on the field. And there are people screaming, she slapped him first, and all this kind of thing. But we weren't there, and we didn't hear it. But this started the conversation between Vash and Saladin and I about triggers, just popping off, and how people are doing it for different things. And so, and so we wanted to talk about it. But we also wanted to talk about it because we have difference of opinions on triggers. Like, for example, I don't think all triggers are bad. No, I don't. I don't think all triggers are bad. And I want to talk about some of that as well.
Okay, there are a couple of things that have come up that I want to talk about.
Okay.
One is that video, because I know when you watch that video, did he actually make contact with her first, or did she make contact with him? And this is before the actual slap. There's a moment where it looks like there's contact before that slap happens. And it seems unclear as to who touched whom. I'm not saying what happened afterwards is warranted or unwarranted, but it's just, there's this question. I would love to see a different angle.
Well, I know I've reviewed the clip like 100 times, it seems like, because I wanted to understand, because I don't know what triggered it.
Totally.
And I did see that she was in his space, and he put his hand up, and he even said, "Get out of my face."
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't hit, from what I've seen, he didn't hit her, but he put his hand up, and as if to say, "Stop." Now, if her hand was swinging in there and he hit her, or he hit her to say, "Stop waving your hand," I don't know. I don't know. But even in that split second, something caused her to not allow her husband or boyfriend or whoever was with her to step in for his woman. She decided to slap this black man in his face. And the whole world saw that.
And didn't she say to her husband or boyfriend, don't worry, I got this?
She said, "I got this, sit down."
Well, it sounds like we've got triggers and entitlement happening all at the same time.
as the black guy, and I'm not advocating violence at all,
Not
but
at all.
but the black guy knocked both of them out. He knocked the guy out completely, and he slugged her for hitting her. It is under investigation right now, though, and I know that the police are looking for people to come in and witnesses, and so I know that that's there. But the thought that someone, whatever happened, you could feel like you could get in someone else's space. And not know that there would be some type of repercussion from that. That is what started this conversation. Like, guys, we all have triggers.
Well, I mean,
Right.
Getting to how we end up having this conversation on the show. What I guess a lot of people don't really realize is that these conversations stem from us at least meeting once to have a conversation about things. Like, what are we going to talk about? And this came up just so spontaneously during our break that people were just really getting to a point where they were just short-circuited and really going off on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of started realizing that we're kind of being conditioned to think this way. We have shows that are on television all the time. Shows like The Real Housewives. We've got shows like The Bachelor, a lot of reality TV shows. And I think we may have photos of some of these shows where we can see, in case you guys don't realize these faces or recognize these faces, we see these women and their husbands on these shows that are always getting up in each other's faces and doing so in a way where they're somewhat protected. I mean, for the most part, they know that no one's really going to hit them or have any sort of violent reaction to them. But in the real world, that's not the case. And we felt like we needed to talk about that because together we think that we can help change the world to get to a much peaceful and more calm place.
Well, you know, but to what you just said, no, there have been repercussions from in some of these shows that where
people have gotten hurt.
Yeah, have
really, because I don't watch them. I can't watch them.
Yeah, people have gotten hurt, and some people have even has even been sued. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Really?
I don't want to. Keith and Derek, welcome to the show, you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry. We want to acknowledge you guys as you come on. So thank you for joining us tonight. Yeah, there have been repercussions from this, but and the big part of this is these are how these shows stay relevant.
Completely. Now, I watch the Bad Girls Club. I'm used to people when they get in each other's faces, them brawling. I thought the Housewives were more tame, even though they still make their money on stepping on each other's triggers and pushing each other to the point where they break. Well, they fight.
They fight.
Yes, wow. They fight. Yes, yeah. Also, just going back to the couple at the Pittsburgh Steelers game, I think that there can be moments that are triggering, the anniversary of a parent's death or the anniversary of your divorce can be a trigger. But from a behavioral science perspective, I think that we're all bounded by some sort of rationality, meaning you may have had an adverse experience with a white person or an Indian person. And based on that one experience, you think that all white people or all Indian people behave or will speak to you in that way. And so I think as a Black man, I think that I naturally like my presence, me walking into a room or walking into the Metropolitan Opera, my presence alone as a Black man, because maybe some people have had some adverse experiences with Black men or because of how they were taught and brought up, they just think of Black people as one way. I know that I trigger them and I can't help that. And I think potentially with this instance at this Steelers game, and again, we weren't there, so we're not privy to the conversation, but perhaps that Black man sitting in front of her triggered her. And to Vash's point, since she was in a public arena and she was with her partner, she probably felt she was in a safe enough space where she could say whatever she wanted to say to him and wave her fingers around this guy's face, thinking that he would not react, that somehow he would be this chivalrous gentleman who would acquiesce to her madness, but it was the complete opposite. So my point is, I think that when we talk about triggers, we also have to realize or consider the fact that we're all bounded by some sort of anchored rationality, and the very thought, the sound of someone's voice or someone's color could take you back to a specific moment that could trigger you.
I love what you just said, because you kind of said that situations can be triggers. So is that to say that just the mere fact of something happening is going to make you behave in a way that's going to affect someone else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It can if you're not managing it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, because I would think that a trigger would be something that is either said or done to you as opposed to you just finding yourself in a similar or familiar situation that is traumatic to you.
Or think like someone who's lost a beloved grandparent, right? And maybe this grandparent passed away June 20th of 2020. Mm-hmm. So every June 20th, this person leading up to June 20th, they're triggered because of the anniversary of the death of their beloved grandparent. Mm-hmm. So on that day, June 20th, because that person is still silently and maybe openly grieving the death of this beloved grandparent, but on that
Right.
specific day, any little thing could trigger that person, right? Because they're triggered by this particular date.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, David says that he agrees with you. He says you are spot on. So thanks,
Yeah.
David.
Thanks, David.
And also, if you look at it in the place in a workplace, I mean, just from my own personal experience in a workplace, I have been, worked long enough where I have seen how my boss, let me just keep it completely raw. My boss has treated me like crap. And, and as I've gotten older and have, gotten different jobs, I'm sorry, you see me waving because we are in the country, like I said, and there's a fly in here that's getting on my nerves. And so if I could just catch it, I will kill it. But anyway, over the years, I have learned that as I work with different people, I have triggers that if someone says anything remotely close to how my previous boss treated me, that brings up a trigger for me. Now I've learned how to manage it, and by that, when I'm faced with certain things where people are questioning my integrity, or when people are telling me how to do my job when they're not doing their job, those triggers come up, but now I know how to manage them. So yes, an experience can bring up a trigger that causes you to pop off to somebody. Whoa, it may have you do that. So
Keith had a lot to say, but the main thing he is saying is that women cannot go around hitting men thinking that the man's not going to defend himself. And then he apologized for his rant because he was triggered, and we appreciate it.
We appreciate that. Okay.
Well, also, not just women, but people in general. Like I always say, you never know who you're dealing with, and you should just leave people alone. Be polite, be kind, and leave people alone, because you never ever know what they're capable of. It could be some guy who could be 30 years old but looks like he's 12, very thin. That guy could be like I don't know karate very well, but he could be like a black belt or a red belt. I don't know the status of the belts. But anyway, he'd be an extremely successful and adroit karate fighter, right? You just never know, and you could get yourself seriously hurt. So I would say men and women, like, try to avoid getting physical with people. I know for me, a trigger, going back to the couple, the people in Pittsburgh, when I see hands around my face, that triggers me because of something that happened to me when I was a young child. So when I see fingers waving around my face, it's like I start seeing black and red, and I have to be aware of that. And this summer, I've had an opportunity to really think about what that is and what that means for me, and how to remove myself from those types of situations.
Yeah. So I guess I can ask at this time, because I do want to talk about trigger warning signs. I do want to do that, but I want to go back a bit and say that I feel that all triggers aren't bad. And I need to explain, for me, why I say that, because in every term that you look at the word trigger, it is all about how it's negative and how you're traumatized. It deals with the trauma of it. But I also see that when you're triggered from a past experience, there's an opportunity where it can help you. It can help you be better. And even though that past experience traumatized you, I think that once you go through it, there's an opportunity for you to be able to manage it and not let it overtake you. And in that case, that's why I say some triggers are, can be good. It can remind you of what you shouldn't do.
I think that not all triggers are bad either, Alvin, or they don't result in truly negative behavior. I happen to be triggered by really sad or sort of unfortunate circumstances where I tend to giggle. Like if there is a funeral or something to be at, sometimes you may not want to sit next to me because more than likely I may end up giggling or cracking a joke to alleviate some of the tension in the situation.
Mhm.
But that's how I show up in certain uncomfortable situations.
Mm.
And
I
that's
got it.
definitely
Yeah.
a trigger and not necessarily a negative thing, unless of course you're the one who's sad.
Right. But again, I think at that point in your life, you were managing it. And I don't want to go through this show thinking that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, he's better or she's better at managing their triggers because they're older. No, it doesn't always, it doesn't always. I have known younger people, much younger than me, who, you know, have found a way early in life how to deal with their triggers, that they're not going to pop off on you when you make them mad or when they experience something. So it's not, I don't think age has anything to do with it. I want to rip that from this conversation, that it's not like the older you get, the better you are at managing your triggers.
Medea doesn't manage her triggers very well.
Right. And people pay a lot of money to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually say older people are probably less good at managing their triggers because they don't care as much anymore. Right. You know, if they're upset about something, they really don't care who's going to know about it. And everyone's supposed to adapt.
No filters at all.
I think that there is a lot of truth in what you just said, Vash. So I'm going to move on to ask you, and I want our viewers to comment on this too. How do you identify your triggers? You know, how do you know that you know, what is your trigger warning signs? Because again, like I said at the beginning of the show, we all have triggers. So don't think that you don't. And I mean, for me personally, some of my, you know, my trigger warning signs come out in many different ways depending on the situation. You know, because I don't like people who are further. Let me say that. I would prefer, if you have anything to do with me, I prefer that you not be late. If you commit to doing something, do it. Say it. Because the one thing that I can't get back is my time.
Okay.
You know, I can't get that back. And so once you disrespect that, or you have decided that, you know, or you've always been a late person in your life, and I say to people, okay, great, I get it. I know you're used to being late. But you might want to look at that if we're going to have any kind of dealings, because it brings up certain triggers. And how I react to that, I prefer not to be bothered with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, David says, love the senior nation. They just say it. And you just say it, don't you?
Okay. Well, I'm a part of the senior nation. And yes, I do. I just go on and say it. So what are some of your trigger warning signs, guys?
That's a really interesting question. I can just feel my body getting hot. Mm-hmm. Lately, something that's been triggering me is the triggering that a lot of the media is doing to people. Like, I'm not sure if you guys have noticed that a lot of times now people are leading off with stories about just saying either liberals this or conservatives that, because they are trying to trigger a response in the people that are reading those stories or watching those sound clips. And what's happening for me now is that I'm now triggered at them because I'm now angry that they are using it to be as divisive as they are. And since we started having these conversations, I looked at that and I just find myself getting warm, and it starts at my knees. I would have thought that it would have started at my feet, but it starts at my knees and then goes up to my neck. Mm-hmm. That's when I know that I'm getting seriously triggered.
Yeah. I just find I start to get an extremely anxious feeling, and depending upon the type of trigger, you know, I can start sweating profusely. My voice may start shaking up a little bit. I may even get a little bit lightheaded in certain situations. And that's when I know for me, it's either time for me to leave the room, walk away from a situation, or in certain scenarios, change topics in order to avoid a real trigger.
Yeah, yeah. I get extremely anxious.
Hmm.
No matter what, I get anxious, and you know, even when driving, when someone is driving close up on me, riding my bumper or whatever, I know I can't do anything to the person, and so I identify myself. People say road rage or what have you, but I will turn off of a street and let someone go by me now, rather than ride and say, oh, I wish he would hit me, or I wish he would hit me. I don't do that anymore, because
Hmm.
it brings on a certain amount of stress. And like I said, my anxiety is already kicked in. And so I know ultimately that could probably um, have me missing a stoplight, and then I'm hit. And so, I just get out of the way and let it happen. So let me ask you guys, do you during this process that you guys are going through these warning signs, do you ever does your do you ever talk, does your mind and body talk to each other? Have you ever experienced that?
Sometimes they disconnect. My mind and my body have disconnected. And again, if I'm having a debate with someone that maybe turns into an argument, or if I am just casually stating a point, but someone doesn't like what I have to say and they start to be triggered and pop off. If I start seeing fingers and hands around my face, I'm thinking I'm about to get hit or cut. So then my mind and my body sort of disconnect, and I may not be as rational.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Did you see Michelle's post here,
I was
or her
just about to
comment?
say, yeah,
Hmm.
that when she gets triggered, she says she can't eat. She had to learn how to deal with it through psychological evaluation.
Wow, Michelle, I'm not making a mockery, but I'm gonna be honest with you. If I would ever get to the point and triggering would stop me from eating, I would say trigger me all day.
I
Okay,
know, right?
because right now, again, I'm not making a mockery out of that. And I'm sorry that happens to you. But girl,
I know.
if oh my goodness, if triggering, oh my goodness,
And
thank
I'm the
you for
Luther
sharing that, Michelle.
Vandross of dance. So in that perspective, I can afford to be triggered a little bit.
I can make fun of me triggered. Okay, I have to make a song about that thing. Okay, um,
And then
but
Keith said when he feels triggered, he feels it in his chest, like he's
Mhm.
ready to go off. So the best thing that he can do to handle is to just shut down and breathe for a few minutes. Because if you don't, he doesn't know what will come out of his mouth, but he knows that it will not be anything
Yeah.
nice.
My
Yeah.
dad gave me some good advice many, many years ago, when I was a young, wild stallion in my 20s and very, very quick to pop off. And my dad told me, when you feel yourself getting angry and you want to physically lash out at someone, remove yourself and find the coldest glass of water that you can, sip slowly and take very deep breaths. And that actually has helped me tremendously. Not white
Interesting.
wine, ice
Mm.
water.
I'm so,
Exactly.
I I was just taking a sip, but thank you. And I guess the last thing that um, I want to ask you guys in this part of this show is, do you have a process for identifying your triggers, where it can like stop you? Where when you feel them coming up, how do you, I identify, like, say when your your chest is getting tight, like Keith says, or like I say, the anxiety kicks in. How do you? What is your process for identifying them so that you don't let them take over you?
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, and I think that when you're when these feelings come up for me,
Mhm.
I how it's going to be. It's not know you know yourself. You know you're experiencing. Hey, for example, we talked about this may be the 20th anniversary of someone's death. Should you not go out? Should you not go out because you know if someone says something to you that may pertain to that situation, do you just not go out?
Maybe you shouldn't go out with someone who, I mean, we all have, our friends have different personalities, and I have friends who are, I don't consider myself a sarcastic person, but I do have friends who are very sarcastic. They like to joke around and tease people. So for me, I wouldn't necessarily, if I had, if I was celebrating the anniversary of a loved one's death, I would want to be around. I don't know if I would want to be alone, but if I decided to be around people, I would choose to be around people who were very loving and supportive and who would be very nurturing, knowing that I was, still grieving from the loss of this person. So I wouldn't position myself to be around someone who, under a normal circumstance, could sort of get under my skin or maybe hit some buttons that have been stuck.
Well, I think that's where communication comes in, because if you're going to be around these people, sometimes you got to tell people, hey, look, today is the day that I lost my dad, or today is, because people don't know what they don't know. So, and we've already said, you don't know what someone's going through. And so you go and you approach them and they have all this stuff going on with them, but they haven't shared it. But in this case of what I'm saying is, if I know that I'm going to be around, I'm having this day where I'm grieving the loss of someone who passed away, I'm going to let somebody know about it. And I agree with you, Saladin. I'm going to be around people who I think can support that part of me for the day. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I mean by how do you deal with it? How do you what is your process for identifying your triggers so that you can deal with them?
Well, Keith has said, if it's something that I'm aware of beforehand, I go into trigger prevention mode. So if it's coming from the left, I'll go right, meaning it seems like he's saying that he's going to take responsibility for what his emotional journey is.
You have to.
And not expect that everyone is going to have to take it on, but still be aware that something may come at him and he'll just have to deal with it. Which is,
I'm into that. Yeah. I'm into that. And David, I see David Eccles said, when in a group setting and an inappropriate statement from a group says a subliminal comment referring to someone or myself triggers me, just ask the question, why start a gossip session I dislike? Someone speaks subliminal comments as if the person isn't there. It triggers your anger, ready to fight, but I just go silent and ready to leave. So basically, I guess is David saying that, he just says, I don't want to be bothered with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to, what I got from that, I don't want to be bothered with that. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And Keith J is back. Thank you, Keith, for joining us. Thank you so much for being here.
I also have recently, this summer, I was hanging out on my rooftop with one of my neighbors and another neighbor, white guy who's very friendly. He grills all the time, and his family was visiting from Southern Illinois, and they were lovely, and I felt very comfortable talking with them. But suddenly the conversation shifted because they started talking about the dangers of certain neighborhoods. And those neighborhoods that they were referencing are mainly Black neighborhoods, like Harlem, for example. Mm-hmm. And that I knew where the conversation was going because for me, they were sending subliminal messages. And rather than me, I know these people, but I like my neighbor a lot, and his family was visiting. So rather than me going on this sort of like political or socio-cultural soapbox, I just shifted the conversation completely because I did feel like, especially in our current political and social environment and all of the political and social unrest, I felt myself being triggered because I felt like they were trying to say, oh, the Black neighborhoods are very dangerous. But the fact of the matter is in New York City, you could get shot in Harlem or you could get shot on Fifth Avenue. The New York City streets do not discriminate when it comes to danger.
Exactly.
But I felt myself getting triggered, and I just had to turn the entire conversation around. and I just start recommending more fun places for them to visit.
Okay. Well, no, I agree with that. Keith said something earlier about his age, and I say this to Vash and Saladin a lot. I meet people where they are. That also helps me to manage my triggers. I am not going to, if someone says something to me, I'm going to respond the way I hear it. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be confrontational, but I'm going to meet you where you're. I'm not going to spend 1 inch or whatever of a second trying to think, what did they really mean by that? I'm gonna respond to how I heard it. And that's how because that way, if I didn't hear it correctly, there's an opportunity for them to say, I don't think you understood what I said. But I never leave a situation feeling like, oh, I wish I had said that. When someone says something to me that has made me feel like, I don't necessarily, it had brought up a trigger. So, yeah. So.
And I think sometimes, to your point too, Alvin, depending upon the scenario and who you're talking with, not every comment is worthy of a repost from us.
Oh,
because sometimes, you get to know people, or you're just having a conversation, like who they are will naturally come out. And what I'm learning, everyone is not for me, and I'm not for everyone. So sometimes people may say certain things, and I'm like, you know what? This is dumb, or this is stupid. This is not even worth a repost from me. And I'll either remove myself, or I can drop the Iron Curtain on that person, and all of my attention will be focused on someone else. But I just don't think that every response is worthy of a comment. Every comment is not worthy of a response.
I echo that.
Seriously, because there are times that people are looking to engage you in such a way that makes you be the aggressor for them to feel justified in the response that they want you to have, so they can pop off or have whatever reaction they want.
Indeed.
I find in certain situations that it's better for me to count to 20. I know normally people say count to 10, but I find that after I get past 15, and as I make my way to 20, sometimes magic happens where someone realizes whatever it was that they were doing, or whatever the situation was, that it really must shift completely into a different direction because they're not getting a reaction or a response.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I don't respond to everything. And I also have a thing that I do when I'm not going to agree with someone who says something that may be looking for an argument. One of the strongest words in the dictionary for me, other than no, is okay. And okay, it's like, it's a sentence all of its own. And so I am not going to be invited into something that I know, as Saladin said, this group of people talking about, neighborhoods and stuff, and who's more likely, what neighborhoods are more likely to have, a shooting. I'm just, sometimes when they're talking, when that happens to me, I'll just say, okay. And I'll give them the Alvin King stare.
And what happens? Usually
nothing. I'll just go on to the next topic. I have my friends who tease me that when I say okay to them, they pretty much knows who it is. Like, say, for example, Derwin, I see him. Hey, good evening, Derwin. Derwin's on here. We've talked about this before. When I say okay, that's pretty much like, I'm not going to feed into whatever you're saying anymore. Okay, it's done. If that's your opinion, yeah.
Here's one. Interesting.
Exactly. So everyone should keep a pair of dark sunglasses in your pocket, okay? Because that definitely works. So Saladin, you have something that I know you wanna ask our viewers.
Sure. So let's just talk about managing your triggers in the moment. So what time, what moments, when do you step back and or take another direction in order to avoid popping off?
Ooh. I'm going to go on record to say every opportunity that I can. Every opportunity that I can take time to step away, because one, life is so short right now. No, life is short. And right now people are getting killed for the most stupidest things, from, not wearing a mask to this whole, people who are vaccinated versus people who are not. We're going through that. So any chance I have, anytime I can step away from it, I do it. That's my thing. Yeah, I just step away.
I agree with you, especially in this day and age where lines are so important. I mean, this whole notion of, hey, we can agree to disagree, that's kind of so like 2000. These days, there are lines. There is a definite truth and there's a definite falsehood. And so often in those situations, I've learned from one of my aunts. She just says, I didn't know that. When someone is going on and on about something that you know not to be true, instead of having to fight with them and disagree, she just simply says, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it diffuses the situation. So
that's a good one. And also, like, real time, like when you're in a situation and you are triggered, right? Like you feel, whether you're sweating, your chest is getting tight, you're giggling, like, like your trigger has been activated, but you're having a hard time processing the situation, right? So you're triggered, but at the same time, you're really trying to process what's happening in order to avoid popping off or being popped off on. How do you then reel in your emotions, like in real time?
I think for me, I go back to, I just unless I'm being violated, unless someone is violating me, and when I say that, I'm in Costco, and here comes someone down the aisle with their cart. Everybody who goes to Costco, I know you have Costco triggers. So don't tell me that you don't. You all have Costco triggers, because people will leave their carts in the middle of the lane, and knowing that you have to get around them, and they bring all their family with them to Costco, and you're just trying to get out of Costco. So what I do, I put on my best, I try to give my best, excuse me, my politest voice possible to say, excuse me. Now, if you just look at me and say, give me the, that's also what I do. I just go, Alvin, do you want to deal with this, or just, that's in the moment. And sometimes it definitely varies. But I want to ask you all a question, because Michelle kind of brought it up. She told me that she told us that she went to a therapist, and I want to know, for dealing with your triggers, is a therapist or a good person to visit, or let's say a life coach? Is a life coach a good person to visit? Or do you think that people can deal with their triggers by themselves?
That's a big question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vash. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
I mean, I tend to think that maybe speaking with a therapist or a life coach could be really helpful, rather than dealing with it on your own. I think it depends on the individual, because if you find yourself like the lady who slapped the black guy at the Pittsburgh Steelers game, if she has a habit of getting into confrontations with not just black men, but men and women in the social setting, at parties or a sporting event, if she has a pattern of getting into physical altercations with people, then clearly she's not doing any work on her own, but perhaps a life coach or a therapist would be helpful. And definitely not talking to your friends. Like, your friends don't care. Everybody has problems at home and at work. So, talking to a close friend, I don't think is not enough. But I think that some support from a therapist or life coach who can really help you navigate towards understanding what your triggers are and avoiding those triggering moments, I think would be beneficial.
I mean, I'm of the mindset that if you know that you have a trigger, meaning that you can recognize that something triggers you, then you are already engaged in that process of being able to stop the impulse that comes from the trigger. And as a coach and as someone who's gone to therapy, one of the things they're going to help you do is get to that point where you recognize it and you shift your behavior. So if you can already recognize it, you're already in that process.
Right.
Yeah.
Getting help is only going to help.
I see. I'm going to go back up the chain. Earlier, Keith
Yes.
J. He said, learning to understand the sequence of chemical brain reactions, e.g., production. Oh wow, he got heavy on me.
He did.
Cortisol, etc., to better learn how to recognize and mitigate the physical results of the trigger. Keith, that's kind of heavy. And that's really heavy, and I need to spend some time with that because I think I hear what you're saying, because it's all connected. Something in your brain is the way our bodies are wired. It's not our heart that causes the trigger. Something goes to your brain that says, "Okay, I'm in this state right now where I can't control it, or you have pressed a button." So Keith, we're not doctors. And we're not therapists, but what you just said, I wish you could expound on it, because I think there's some important points on there to be shared with the viewers about what you just said. I really do. Yeah.
While we're in the comments, because people have said a number of things. Keith Branch said when it absolutely has nothing to do with him, he's able to mentally check out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle Madison earlier told us that she was diagnosed with an eating disorder, so we shouldn't make fun of her not eating when she is triggered. But she also says that she thinks about her 4 grandchildren, all 7 and under, and she doesn't want them to think that they have a psycho granny. So she really keeps herself in check. And we appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
I have an eating disorder as well. It's called greed.
Okay.
And that's why I call myself the Luther Vandross of dance.
That's so funny.
Okay. And thank you, David. Yes, it does start in the brain. And I think that's the point that Keith J was getting to, at least that was my takeaway from what he said. Yes, it definitely.
Yeah.
It definitely starts in the brain.
Keith Branch says that he takes refuge in his music. He'll try to turn it into a song. And I say that's a nice Buddhist application, turning poison into medicine, turn that grief into a song. I feel it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Keith J came back and explained his comment. He said, simply understanding the chemical brain process might help me see and better understand me and what I'm doing in terms of the trigger and the response.
Exactly. And I think that gets back to what Saladin's question was, or what your question was, Alvin, which is who do you need to help you? If you're in a place where you can recognize it, you are already well down the path of being able to take a moment before the impulse hits, breathe, and change the behavior.
And can I also clarify that when I asked the question about who do you go to, a therapist or a life coach, or just try to deal with it on your own, I love and support. I have been in therapy. I love therapy. I advocate get help when necessary. So I don't want to come across like, pick or choose something like that. When you need it, you need to get help in any shape, form, or fashion. So I am not Alvin King without all the help that I've had by going to a therapist and even a life coach to be able to do a show like this and feel comfortable doing it. So I support that, but I was just asking the question because some people think that they can do it on their own, and that's not always the case. So
life is always better with a coach. Everyone needs a little bit of therapy.
I've also undergone therapy, and the therapist that I've worked with from 8 years old up until very recently have provided a tremendous amount of support and helped me really learn a lot about myself and how to how to manage in certain situations. And someone made a comment earlier, but we're constantly evolving, right? And so it's never too late or too soon to get therapy. There's no shame behind it. They always sort of cliche, but I believe in it. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness.
I totally agree. You guys, but before we get to our, I want to have, I want to have a bottom line here where Saladin, Vash, and I give our bottom line on, just overall on the whole dealing with your triggers concept. But before we do that, we also want to share with our viewers that we have just picked some points that we feel that they could do in order to deal with their triggers if they feel the need that their triggers are out of control, and even if they need to go get help. And one of the things that we have seen throughout this dialogue is get to know you. Get to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, and don't lie to yourself, if you look in that mirror and you see something that's not right, say that's not right. Don't close your eyes and think that it's going to go away. And Saladin and Vash, you guys can chime in on some of these points.
Sure.
And the next thing that we said, give yourself some space. And by that, I mean, just give yourself space to accept who you are.
Yeah. And keep an open mind. And keep an open mind makes me think back to Vash's comment about his aunt, who will say, I never knew that. And my interpretation of keep an open mind is, we all come from different places. We all are sort of anchored by different bounded rationality. So people aren't always trying to come for you. People aren't always trying to pressure buttons and make you pop off. So we do have to keep an open mind and be an active listener and understand that some things maybe you didn't know, or maybe you don't want to know. So going back to Alvin's previous point, and keeping an open mind, maybe you also have to give yourself some space by removing yourself from a particular situation.
Exactly. And I mentioned, go ahead, Vash.
No, go ahead.
No, I mentioned early that you have to communicate. You have to communicate. I said that, people don't know that you're dealing or grieving. So sometimes you got to open your mouth and say, this am now. This is where I am right now. And it may put you in a vulnerable place, especially if you're not used to divulging information about yourself, because a lot of people are like so tight-lipped. They're like this, I don't want people to know who I really am. I'm not going to say anything. Well, it can free your mind. So communicate. And I mentioned that earlier in the discussion.
Yeah, I just want to add that, we are all having our own experience. And a lot of triggers are trauma-driven. And understanding that our own particular experience with a particular situation is really, truly our own. And I think for me, understanding that is understanding some of my own triggers.
Exactly. Well, for our bottom line, is there anything that you, Vash, or Saladin would like to say, like as a closing, to this whole concept of dealing with your triggers?
I would just say, again, going back to the points that we just sort of listed off about, getting to know yourself, giving yourself space, keep an open mind, communicate, work on mindfulness, which, Vash alluded to, and identifying toxic patterns within yourself and also within other people. And, and keeping a journal, maybe writing things down, even if it's only for, 2 or 3 minutes a day. Just sort of writing down in the journal exactly what you're feeling, what you're going through, and reviewing those things. But my bottom line is be kind, be respectful, and treat people the way that you want to be treated. And we'll all navigate this world in a much more easier and successful way.
Thank you. How about you, Vash?
I love what Saladin just said. And, when dealing with our own triggers, it's always important to recognize them, recognize when we've been triggered, and when necessary, apologize for them. I have an expression that I use that, Alvin, I think you may have heard. I think you both may have heard. it's like do right because apologies are expensive. And by that, I mean to really take ownership for who you are and how you have been in a moment and put yourself in someone else's shoes and mend that. But more importantly, change the behavior. That change has an internal cost and it only makes you better. So do right. Apologies are expensive.
Thank you. My bottom line is 2 words: be happy. And when I say be happy, happy people really don't care or don't react to what other people are saying either about them or to them to bring up certain triggers. Happy people are the type of people who can say, okay, I heard what he or she said, and that's it. So my closing bottom line to dealing with your triggers is be happy. All right. Thank you guys for this conversation tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all of our listeners. Hey, Jason, Stonewall, thank you for being on here tonight. We are going to have another episode or another segment tonight that you all love very much, and it's called Black Excellence. So if we can have Black Excellence, let's go into it.
Emmy-nominated actor and producer Michael Kenneth Williams was one of his generation's most respected and acclaimed talents. By bringing complicated and charismatic characters to life, often with surprising tenderness, Williams established himself as a gifted and versatile performer with a unique ability to mesmerize audiences with his stunning character portrayals. Born in 1966 in Brooklyn, New York, Williams began his career as a performer by dancing professionally at age 22. After numerous appearances in music videos and as a background dancer on concert tours for Madonna and George Michael, Williams decided to seriously pursue acting. He participated in several productions of the La Mama Experimental Theater, the prestigious National Black Theater Company, and the Theater for a New Generation directed by Mel Williams. Williams was best known for his remarkable work on The Wire in 2012. The wit and humor that William brought to Omar, the whistle-happy, profanity-averse drug dealer, robbing stick-up man, earned him high praise and made Omar one of television's most memorable characters. Williams also co-starred in HBO's critically acclaimed series, Boardwalk Empire. In 2012, Boardwalk Empire won a Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by an Ensemble in a Drama Series. He received his first Emmy nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Limited Series or a Movie for HBO's Bessie, and subsequently received his second nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Limited Series for his portrayal of Freddie in HBO's The Night Of. But it was this year. Williams earned his 5th career Emmy nomination, this time for his portrayal of Montrose Freeman in the HBO horror series Lovecraft Country. The series, inspired by Matt Ruff's novel of the same name, deal with Lovecraftian horrors and the monstrosity of racism and anti-Blackness in the Jim Crow South. Williams told The Daily that, monsters aside, Lovecraft Country helped him process his own issues. Giving back to the community played an important role in Williams' off-camera life as well. He launched Making Kids Win, a charitable organization whose primary objective is to build community centers in urban neighborhoods that are in need of safe spaces for children to learn and play. Williams served as the ACLU's ambassador of Smart Justice as well. I will end my tribute by sharing a post I read on Facebook by a gentleman named Alvin McCrae, who has also appeared on He Said, He Said, He Said. And Alvin wrote everything about Michael K. Williams that I was actually feeling. So I want to share with you what he said. My colleague and I were talking over lunch about this commercial starring this dark-skinned actor and how we both couldn't immediately name him, but knew exactly who he was. I then shared with my colleague how I used to think Hollywood was a land of perfection until I saw this actor on screen, donning his 4-inch deep scar down the center of his face, and how remarkably beautiful that made him. As an actor, Michael K. Williams and his scar told me that I didn't need to be Hollywood's handsome, but that every unique line or under eye bag was only a part of my story, and that beauty is in how you make others feel more than how you appear. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, Michael K. Williams passed away on September 6, 2021. His life was definitely a life well lived, and we will miss him. Rest in peace, Michael K. Williams. This is Black Excellence.
Wow, thank you,
Well
thank you,
done.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, we will miss this great actor. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me just say thank you for all of your comments that you all have shared tonight. They are very helpful. We truly appreciate it. We are so happy to be back. Next week, we are back again live, and we are doing a segment called Your Voice Matters. And for our special guest, we're going to have Officer Desiree Walker with the LGBTQI liaison unit with the Metropolitan Police Department. And she's going to be here to talk about, things that matter, particularly in the LGBTQI community. So in closing tonight, our words of the week, which is pretty fitting to this topic tonight. You don't have to RSVP to every argument you've been invited to. And actually, that was from me. That I live by that. So I'm thankful to Vash and Saladin for letting me share that. And tonight we're going to again wish you all well and hope that you all have a great weekend. So I'm going to close out with saying thank you for joining us tonight on He Said.
He said.
He said.
And we hope to see you guys next week. Have a good night.
All right, thank you.